Hi, my name is Cindy Selman, and my observation presentation is going to be on operant methods of socialization. I performed a observation in a second grade classroom at Centennial Elementary School in Nampa, Idaho. This school is an older school. It was actually my elementary school when I went there in first and second grade. It was built back in 1975. The majority of students are white, but the Hispanic population makes up a very large amount. Almost 35% of the students are of Hispanic population. This school is now predominantly in a distressed area. It has about an 80 to 85% rate of students receiving free or reduced lunches. I observed a teacher who I will be referring to as Mrs. Hamilton, who has been teaching for 16 years. 9 years as a language arts and reading teacher in middle school at both South and West, and 7 years at Centennial, 3 years of that teaching kindergarten, 1 year in third grade, and 3 years in second grade. I was also witness to a substitute during 2 of my sessions with a substitute we'll refer to as Mrs. Smith. The aims of socialization are to develop a self-concept, enable self-regulation, empower achievement, teach appropriate roles, and implement developmental skills. Quote from Roberta Burns in the Child Family School Community Socialization and Support textbook. Socialization processes are affected by biological, sociocultural, and interactive factors. Socialization allows children to learn what they need to know, to be well integrated into society. At the same time, it allows them to form their own potential and build meaning relationships with others, as well as helping them define who their overall personality is going to end up being in the long run. There are 5 methods of operant socialization, the first one being feedback. Feedback is evaluative information, both positive and negative. Feedback can be both verbal and nonverbal. Feedback provides children with information on how they are measuring up to standards of behavior or performance, for example, report cards. Feedback increases motivation. Feedback improves performance, and timing of feedback is important. The earlier, the better. One of the big things that I saw first thing when I would walk into the classroom would be the behavior chart, which was very similar to the one shown in the picture here in this slide. It was very easy to tell the tone of the classroom by where the students were in their day, by where they were placed on the chart. It didn't matter where the students were placed or how many had good days and how many had bad days. Mrs. Hamilton's instructions stayed the same. Her mood never changed and her demeanor never changed. What I found really fascinating was one day during class when they were working on individual assignments and getting a little chatty. I observed Mrs. Hamilton stand up to the side of the room and say, "Macaroni and cheese." All of the students immediately stopped what they were saying and doing and followed up very loudly with, "Everybody freeze." At that point, Mrs. Hamilton then expressed what they should be doing, that they should be silent, and gave her reasonings why they should be silent, because their classmates still were not done with their projects, even if they were. Another great thing about feedback was as the students were working individually on their assignments, and Mrs. Hamilton was walking between the rows, visiting with each student to see their progress, she was able to immediately help them understand the problem that they were having if they were struggling, and provide them with feedback on the answers for which they had already had done. This allowed them an immediate understanding on whether or not they understood the material taught to them or if they did not. This also allowed Mrs. Hamilton the ability to know where her class stood at the same time with understanding their comprehension of the material as well. The next method of operant socialization is reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is a reward or other pleasurable stimuli used to reinforce positive behavior. Possible challenges with positive reinforcement. Not each child will respond the same. Different children have different likes and dislikes. Negative reinforcement is the termination of unpleasant stimuli following the desired response. Possible challenges with negative reinforcement is you must be careful to not confuse this with punishment, cautious of feelings being hurt. I saw positive reinforcement in a couple of different methods. On a particularly rough day when the students were not performing at optimal levels, where the clips on the behavior chart were mid-level and below for a majority of the class, as Mrs. Hamilton was instructing them, answers were not being thought of, answers were not correct when given by the students. Mrs. Hamilton went behind her desk and grabbed the largest bag of gummy bears I think I have ever seen, and again started to ask the questions. As the children responded with correct answers, they would receive a gummy bear. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a second grader and gummy bears, but they are a big deal to them. So, by the time that the lesson plan was over with, every student had received at least one gummy bear for a correct answer or participation. Another form of positive reinforcement was even though the kids were very distracted during the fall carnival week, on the Thursday that I observed, there was a point system on the board, and the students were trying to reach 100 points in order to receive an extra recess the next day. As the afternoon progressed, the point total would increase and decrease based on students' behaviors. If a child caused the students or the class total to drop, all of the students would then groan, moan, say something, and tell them not to do it again. The students took part in helping police each other, making sure that everyone was on their best behavior. Negative reinforcement, I did not see an awful lot of that. There were instances when the children were allowed to play with games when they had all their work done. However, if they were not playing correctly, causing disruptions to others, that privilege was then taken away since they were not able to maintain a quiet voice in the class and caused disruption to their classmates and peers. The next method of socialization is extinction. Extinction is the removal of the reinforcing stimuli that encourages the undesired behavior. Extinction is most effective when used with positive reinforcement when desired results are achieved. Timeouts can help give a child time to manage their feelings and behavior. Extinction, plain and simple, is the removal of whatever is causing the issue. If you can take something away, change the behavior that is being exhibited, and reinforce that with praise, then you are exhibiting form of extinction. Now, this is going to be very effective on kids. If you ever have punished a child from the Xbox for not doing what they were supposed to be doing, it's amazing the turnaround time that you can get things done. There are certain motivators for children, and being able to figure what those motivators are out, it helps drastically with being able to manage the behavioral situations. Next, we have punishment. Now, punishment was not something that was part of my classroom dynamic, at least when I was there. I did discuss with Mrs. Hamilton what her punishment practices were. Punishment is the removal of things like recess, privileges like going to the library, playing with the learning games. There is also a special spot for them to sit up by her desk for the day if they are just not cooperating and being bad. But overall punishment was not something that I actually got to witness in my classroom. But we will, punishment is used as an intervention tactic to discourage undesirable behavior. Punishment can be physical or psychological. Punishment can consist of removal of pleasant stimuli. And timing, reasoning, and consistency are the keys to effectiveness. You need to be able to punish relatively quickly when the behavior happens so that it doesn't happen again. It just reinforces that whole dynamic. The next is learning by doing. Socialization can occur through being allowed to experiment and interact, giving the students choices of activities that are age and learning level appropriate. Play is one of the best methods of learning by doing. Learning by doing is something that our kids do all the time. When they're working together on assignments, group projects, things of that nature, they have to be able to learn to fail and succeed, and the only way they can do that is to actually try. So they learn a lot of things this way. They learn right from wrong this way. They learn what works and what doesn't this way. This is something I saw a lot in the classroom. The kids were helping each other with assignments. If somebody was struggling, somebody else would step in and help. It was pretty awesome to watch that they cared for each other and looked out for each other, making sure that they had all of the necessary tools and everything that they needed to do their assignments. My conclusion: teaching is more than just teaching a lesson plan. Make sure you leave by 5 was probably the biggest piece of advice that Mrs. Hamilton gave me, although she gave me lots. But as a new teacher, she just wanted to make sure that we reached out to the mentors in our schools and make sure you don't live it 24/7. Because it's going to become 24/7, but you can always come back the next day and finish it. You don't have to live your life in the school. The better you know your students, the higher success you will have at teaching them. Understanding your students' learning struggles and behavioral issues helps you be able to predict how your day will be, and it will help you be able to teach your students in a manner that helps them learn more effectively and efficiently. Teach because you want to make a difference. Teaching is a calling. It's something special. It's not something that just anybody can do. It requires somebody who has a heart and who has patience and who has a tremendous amount of love to give to others. That's one of the biggest reasons why I want to teach. Thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate while we went through this presentation. I hope you have a very great rest of your school year and a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.